How's it going, everybody? Carpo Philosophy. What does it take to make a world work? What does it take to make people realize their shortcomings and realize that it's okay to have shortcomings and that we're all faulty, that we're all corrupt, yet we're all great and wonderful at the same time? More than that, what does it take to make people realize that money and fame aren't what matters in this world, aren't what matters in any sphere of influence except the one that we've created that we call culture? In other words, I guess what I'm trying to say here is that if we want to make a change, my opinion is that we have to make that change ourselves first, and we know this. But more than that, we have to show people why we don't care about certain trivial things in life. And I'm going to try to explain this the best I can. One of the most damaging things, I think, in modern society when it comes to choices people make, it's to revere celebrities over people who actually make a large impact on the world. And I'm not talking about the celebrities that are out there helping people. I'm talking about celebrities that are famous merely for being famous. In other words, you might see a news ad talking about how much society sucks because all we do is talk about Kim Kardashian or Kanye West. Well, the very article talking about that is talking about that. To give you a better explanation, on Facebook, let's say lately and elsewhere, because I don't watch the news at all, any local or national news. I get all my media secondhand through other people, and if an important story pops up, then I will look into it. And I actually do, I do keep up to date, and once in a while I research the latest findings and whatnot. But generally what you'll find is, if you keep up to date on all the news every day, and you're always watching the morning news to know what's up, none of it will serve you in the long run. None of the things that I've really learned in the past on the daily news ever served me. So all they do is serve to corrupt my thinking patterns, and that's why I don't. And there's nothing wrong with keeping up on the world, but that's not keeping up on the world anymore. They're worried about a local rapist that got away 20 years ago and it's some anniversary, or tonight, the dangers of this or that. The news is complete bullcrap. But I guess I'm not trying to get into the media aspect of it here, but what we choose to watch and pay attention to is just as important as what we buy. When we go down to the store, we have a choice to go to Walmart or elsewhere. Me personally, I don't shop at Walmart because I don't support that mass crap corporate structure that they represent. Yet at the same time, I do shop at, say, Kroger, which is Fred Meyer out here, and they're a corporate entity too. Some people won't even shop there. They'll only shop at Whole Foods. Other people won't even shop there. They'll only shop at their little local markets. And on and on. Everybody has their level of what they consider to be, making a difference or an impact. Beyond those basic choices that we make in daily life, I think there's something very important that we need to do in regards to the whole celebrity issue. And this is my proposition: that we stop giving attention to people that don't deserve it. That we give attention to people who actually care. Not people who just get attention or become famous just because they're famous if they've done something bad, or just because they're a musician or an actor or actress. And also, to stop revering people who don't deserve it. In other words, we tend to revere people who are wealthy, and revere people who are famous just because they're famous, like for actors. I think we need to ask ourselves, what do we really want out of this world, instead of this image that we see of, that people put on this fake ass front about, in our daily lives, the important things, or what we deem to be important. And in our hearts, we know what's important. So we say things like, well, we got to stop talking about this, but then we do it anyway. The thing I was going to say earlier was the bathroom deal. I didn't, I hadn't heard any news about the thing about this gender bathroom issue lately, but it'll fade into the woodwork like they all do. It's just another distraction. But it's bullshit, complete nonsense. It's a non-issue in most places. And a few people take it upon themselves to blow it out of proportion and worry about a transgender person using a bathroom. Point being that there are, I see a dozen people talking about how we have to stop worrying about this kind of shit when we have these bigger issues going on, yet they're still talking about it. We're still talking about it. The idea is just to zip it. So when we see something that we deem important, I guess, to act on it, but not to jump on a bandwagon just because people are doing it, I guess this is harder to explain than I thought. Everything's hard to explain, right? Well, I guess what I'm saying in a nutshell is that I think we as a society need to give much more credit to the people that we know are the better people. We talk about people like Gandhi as being so great, but then we go and support people like Trump. We have a complete clash of values as to what we really truly believe in our hearts and what we think is just a way to get the emotions flowing, the juices flowing, a new story that pops up that moves us. You know why gun control has been such a huge thing for so long? It's because so many people are so obsessed about their guns. They love their guns. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not a person who's obsessed with guns, but I respect a person's right to bear arms. Yet, for the last 2 decades, I've been hearing folks say, this president's going to take our guns, and these congressmen are going to take our guns, and that our rights are being taken away. And I even believed it. Back in the late 90s, I thought, oh boy, they're going to start taking our guns and strip us down, FEMA camps, and they're going to declare martial law. And what's happened since then? Guns are on the rise. Guns are always on the rise. They're on the increase. There's more guns than there have ever been in the streets in the United States. So when I look into what they actually are trying to take away, it's things like, 50 or 100 round magazines, or, guns that are obviously not for hunting, and people say, oh, I have the right to have whatever weapon I want. Perhaps, but in the long run, nobody's trying to take away gun rights. That's the thing. It's a misnomer that doesn't make any sense. They're like, nobody's trying to strip the rights away. They're trying to cater it to where everybody feels comfortable. And it's a very difficult thing for people to understand. I guess what I'm saying is that people all lash out when one thing comes up that they feel like affects them. They don't think about anybody else sometimes. They don't think about the millions who could benefit from such a thing. I mean, there are guys out there who are saying that, say our gun rights are being stripped and we demand to have 100-round clips. And I would ask why? For what reason would you ever need such a thing? And of course, a lot of these folks are the kind of, people who believe in, the right to protect their country and themselves, and they believe that they might have to rise up one day to defend themselves against not just the government, but people, their fellow citizens. If there's ever a major disaster, people are going to want to have, weapons so they can defend themselves. That is something I totally understand. But folks take it to the next level. They jump on the bandwagon, even though they might have 100 guns already and all the ammo they could ever need, I don't know how I got onto guns in particular, and I hope not ruffle any feathers, because I'm actually, I grew up with a very strong respect for guns, and I'm a damn good shot. So I'd have no problem if something, came up where I had to defend myself, but it's not something I go around bragging about, so it's one of those things that you just kind of keep to yourself, or should. You hear a lot of these people on Facebook say stuff like, yeah, well, if the government ever comes to my house, man, I got all these guns and I'm gonna blast them. It's like, dude, why would you even say that on the internet? Are you stupid? There are limits to what you should say online, that's for sure. But I guess in a nutshell, I just want to see the world a better place. And I think that we're not going to be able to ever make a law that stops people from being billionaires, or want to make a law to stop people from being billionaires. Nor are we going to make a law that is going to stop people from being assholes to their family and friends and others. But if we can't make rules that stop people from being assholes, then how do we deal with it? And that's by shaming them. And I guess I should have probably just used that term at the beginning, because that's really what I'm trying to get at here, is that the ultimate thing you can do to someone is to shame them. Not shame them for being, let's say, rich, or for being angry once, but for being greedy, or for being a jerk. Those kind of things. And two separate, you know. We have to be selective and stop generalizing people. It's one of the things that drives me nuts on, you know, in conversations, is when people say, let's say, Freemasons are trying to do this, or all Jews are trying to do this, or, you know, blacks do this, whites do this, women are like this, men are like this. Fucking A, people, we are all individuals. Don't forget that. Each male has a little bit of female in him, and every female has a little male in her. We're all a little bit of everything, and we're all a little animal, and we're all a little spiritual, and we're all a little evil and good, and all these different things. We all have different values. We've grown up. I mean, I don't even have to explain this shit. You all know it. But it's something we forget. We tend to forget. When you go to work and everybody's dressed as, you know, a person at work. Let's say you go to a person who works in the office, everybody's in a suit. You start to assume, hey, one guy's acting a little different, you know, what's up with him? Fuck, maybe he's having a bad day. People are just different. You have to, you know, we have to remember that we're all different, and that we're not just numbers. But at the same time, I think another thing that just popped into my head is to not be just known for being different. You know, I've met a lot of folks who strive and you know, will do anything to be different. You know, if the group's thinking one way, they're always trying to think a different way. They're always trying to go against the grain and rebel against what others think. Merely to be the one that considers themselves an independent thinker. And I don't blame that. I don't blame people, because you don't want to get stuck into groupthink. But you also don't want to get stuck in, you know, not being able to agree on anything, or being able to discuss something. So, to wrap this up, I think what I'm kind of trying to say here is that I hope people in the future generations admire each other for the right reasons, and give each other a pat on the back for something like a smile, or even a kind gesture to someone, that we really recognize those things. And instead of spending so much time recognizing the negatives, we shame people and walk away from them. Because the more attention you give to people who do negative things, the more people will do negative things. I'm not going to even get into shootings and murders and you know, the people do all kinds of things for all kinds of reasons. But when a person makes a decision to do something, sometimes it's so they can be noticed. And we have to stop noticing people for the wrong reasons. That's all. Take care. Have a good